Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Morning Coffee Review. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. Jason Artley, still on his sabbatical. He will be back next week. Haven't chatted with him. Hopefully, everything went well on his travels across the pond, which is ironic enough because today I asked PJ to join us, who isn't traditionally from here, right? You traveled from across the pond as well. How are you doing today, PJ?
I'm brilliant. Thanks very much, Michal.
I truly appreciate you joining us today. As always, whenever I invite guests on, I don't give them much to run off of. I let them kind of jump in here.
You get them nothing.
I had Matt last 2 weeks ago when he prepared some questions for us. But I like to kind of go off the cuff. So what I did want to go and talk about today was kind of your adventure into this industry, up to what you're doing currently here at ATG as well, and then we'll take it from there. But I would really like for you to talk a little bit. And as always, anybody in here, if you have a specific question around Bluebeam, by all means, feel free to ask those questions in the chat and we'll dig into Bluebeam. But today, since we have a special guest, we're going to answer and talk about more PJ's work and where he came from in industry as well. So hold on, PJ, because I'm trying to do two things at once. So you know me, multitasking isn't the best. I was removing this read AI notes. Okay, so PJ, back to my question. Where did you start out? What made you join the industry? And how did you end up where you're at today?
I don't know if we have enough time for this question, but I'll try and squeeze it in. So my dad was a builder. My first
in Ireland.
In
Okay.
In Ireland.
I just checking. I don't know. You never know, right? Did he start out there, born and raised there? I don't know.
No, he was born in the countryside in a county called Mayo. He moved to Dublin when he was pretty young with my mother, and we lived in a caravan for about 15 years. Moved into a house. I remember the first time moving into that house. Oh my God, it was like a mansion to me because living in the caravan's really, really tight space. But anyway, he became a builder. And I went out to work at the age of 12. I helped my dad and my granddad build a house from the foundation right up to the ridge. At 15, I think it was 13 or 14 maybe, we had built 5 houses. And I was done with the building portion of that. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to start designing it because it's indoors. It's not outdoors. Where do we go from there? From there, I got into university in County Cork and did 1 year there. During that year, met my wife, moved to America. Got odd jobs when I got here because I only arrived with a couple of dollars in the pocket, which was quite a surprise there. So got a job with her uncle, and he owned a machine shop. So I started off doing a bit of paperwork. Then I got interested in the programming, got into the programming of CNC machines, and got good at it, and started on the machines, then actually cutting materials, learning the different types of materials. From there, they sent me to a SurfCam and MasterCam class. Halfway through the MasterCam class, they offered me a job to teach it. And at the same time, I had a colleague or a big friend of the person that was working for a different company. That company found out about me. They were called Frontier Technologies. Their biggest client was Enron. I don't know if you know Enron.
Nope.
Probably the biggest swindlers that existed. Their biggest client was Enron. From there, opened a couple of different businesses, did a consulting business.
So let's go back to the cam stuff. So that would be kind of equated to Fusion, right? Here from an Autodesk perspective.
Well, it's a CNC software.
Oh, okay. So it's more of a code script
it's
run.
Okay. Well, it is 2D and 3D parts. I would mostly machine 5-axis, so everything would be in 3D for me. And that software then would send the code, the G code, to the machines, and then you go out to your machine and you sync and cut that material.
Yeah, you watch it. Yeah, they had a 5-axis laser. I never did any of the programming for any of the lasers. At the windows and door shop I did, they used the 5-axis for aluminum extrusion for the window openings when they were doing aluminum, which was more cost effective, of course, versus like stainless steel sheets, which was cut on the plasma laser. And a bunch of welding, of course, to put things together, ordering glass that sometimes doesn't fit, all that good stuff. So, but back forward. So you did some odd jobs, consulting after that. And then
ended up with a company called Core States. They wanted to introduce LiDAR scanning. Then they purchased a machine, used the machines, which were actually Leica products, RTC 360s. From once COVID hit, there was like 500 of us twiddling our thumbs at home. All their high-end clients completely paused everything. So I believe it was 5 months and I get a call and they're like, sorry, PJ, we have to let you go. And I'm like, that's fine, no problem. So the wife and I decided to.
I mean, we gotta always, for everyone that hasn't ever met PJ, which is a lot of folks on here, PJ's mentality, his philosophy of life is just so astounding because he just literally just says, "Oh, that's fine. You gotta lay me off. Totally fine. No big deal." But continue on, PJ, because it just shines through even when you're talking about your story of someone letting you go.
You're getting me on shine, embarrassed. So my wife and I, we decided that night, because that night she got laid off too. It was the same night.
Really?
So when she got home that night, we actually decided to sell everything. So we lived in California, decided to sell everything we had. And the day the house sold, we rented a Ford Expedition. And when you put the seats down on the Ford Expedition, it's over 6 foot long, and it's a hair over 4 foot wide. So I designed a bed for the inside. And we traveled for 4 months and we hit 48 states.
Wow.
So the dealership, they wouldn't allow us to rent it for, 3, 4, 5 months. So we'd have to renew the rental every 30 days. So wherever state we're in, we would have to try and get another rental. So the first time we brought it in, the guy is like, "Oh, yeah, we have to take this off you. We sold it." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean you sold the SUV? We're traveling in it." So I'm like, "Listen, if you're going to give us another SUV, it's got to be like kind or better with the same price." And we were getting it for $38 a day.
Wow.
Now you're looking at hundreds of dollars a day for something like this. So during our travel, the thing was very close because we were looking for a place to stay, right? So we would go to open houses in all these different states and research the state for taxes and property taxes and stuff like that. And during the course of the travel, someone says, "Why don't you try Gulf Shores, Alabama?" And we're like, "To heck with it, we're still traveling." So we went to Gulf Shores, loved it. ended up in Gulf Shores for a year and a half or something. Then the wife Mona, she got an offer of a job in Dallas, Texas. And hence this is where I am now.
Where you are now. Yep.
Yeah. And I think I got the position while I was was it Dallas? I can't recall now if I got the position with ATG when I was in Gulf Shores or no, I got the position here when I was in Dallas.
Well, hold on. We skipped a whole beat because when did this school thing happen, PJ?
The school thing?
Yeah, for architecture.
Oh, sorry.
You
Oh my
totally missed
God.
this whole beat.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
When was
listen,
that?
It's 8:40 in the morning. That was so I had a portfolio I did a lot of stuff before I went to university, before I went to university, and my wife seen it. And she's like, why don't you make a portfolio? So I made this portfolio, and she looked at this portfolio and she researched all of these different universities. And she's like, you're going here. And I'm like, where am I going? She said, you're going here, you're going to SciArc. Because at the time we were living in California.
Yeah.
And so I ended up applying to SciArc, and apparently there's only 50 spots or something a year, and I got in.
So how did you get in? From your application, you also had to have a portfolio, or what type of application process was it?
I got in because of experience, I believe. Plus, I had a high school, whatever you call here, degree, or so I had to get my certificate from the Irish high school, we call secondary school, delivered to SciArc so they can look at the units and see if they had qualifying, whatever procedures they go through, with different countries, results. There's some sort of process to go through. So I matched that, and then I got in, I think, because of my experience. So I was working full-time as a real estate agent and going full-time in university. And good God, was that so difficult. Oh my God.
I couldn't imagine architecture school plus full-time real estate.
Yeah. Well, I had to pay for it. Yeah, it was tough. It was a toughie.
And you passed. You graduated.
Yeah, graduated in 2017. Went in 2012, graduated 2017.
That's amazing.
And I was very proud of myself.
And as you should be.
I went back really late.
Yeah, because I remember we've had that conversation. This was your second.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them thought, when they saw me first, they thought I was a professor. I'm like you. I'm a student. I swear.
So you went back to school. What was your first degree then back in Ireland before you came over here?
Before I came over here?
Yeah. Or was this your first university degree?
Oh, this will be first.
Your first one? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you say secondary school, you meant high school is what we refer to.
Yeah, high school here is secondary school there.
Okay. So after that, you graduated, then also you found your way, fast forward to Austin, and then you had some reality capture experience. You also had some architecture experience at one of the most renowned known architecture schools in the United States. And then you had some CAM, or what we would say manufacturing, fabrication experience before getting a call. Or did you apply here? Did you get a call, PJ?
I applied.
Okay.
And the first round was I believe it was with Scott Pruitt.
Yep.
And then the second round was with Scott and Jeff.
Okay. Yeah. So you applied for what position here?
It was the reality capture specialist.
Yes. So let's talk a little about reality capture. Where is that at in the industry, and how important is it, do you think, that people are extracting existing conditions, or because I know this is happening a lot too, from existing conditions as built as well. So first and foremost, let's start there. How important is point clouds, do you think, in this part of the industry?
Well, it used not be like LiDAR has been around for quite a while.
How long?
Well, when the uh, oh, um, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. Hangs me up. But it's been around for quite a while. And like if you think about it, the jobs are so massive. Like we did one project that was the Alabama T-Mobile Civic Center, like a big arena. Now, how many guys would you send out there with, laser measures or tape, and you sketch on your tablet, and you come back and 100% it's always wrong. LiDAR is so important right now. It can be expensive, but the thing is that you will get more jobs faster. You will create the end product faster, and whatever equipment you purchase, you would possibly make that up within a year or 2 years in a heartbeat. It is so important to get into that area right now, because it's exact. Like the equipment we use is we can get in less than a 16th of an inch at accuracy. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't do that by hand. You can't do that manually. It's virtually impossible.
Especially for something like a civic center, right?
Oh, correct.
Yeah. So I always want to bring up another comparison too, since that's funny you have real estate experience, because I feel like the real estate market got hit pretty quickly with photogrammetry versus LiDARs, right? So as everyone may be aware of it, Matterport came on the market and was definitely heavily used during COVID for real estate. Not having to walk through, seeing a visual of a property. I feel like personally, that's when it really picked up in our industry, in comparison to what we have, which is something like from Leica, right? PJ. And for those folks that may not know any of scanners or what part of the industry is kind of looking like, kind of give me a rundown of the difference between those two. And let's use the Mobile Center. How would it have been different with photogrammetry or LiDAR?
So photogrammetry, like let's say you use a drone. The drone is always moving. It's like an unstructured scan. There is accuracy in it, but not like a stationary scanner where it sits on a tripod and you move it around every 30, 40 feet. That's a structured scan. And those scans, you can get really, really tight accuracies on it. Photogrammetry, Leica has, software, another software that will stitch those photos together. And we don't really use that software. It's pretty good. It's pretty accurate too. We use other softwares like Cyclone to bring in the LiDAR scan, manipulate that scan, kick that scan out for Revit and Recap. Recap is, like everyone knows, it's an Autodesk software. Recap is really good because you can bring in other projects into a current project. We do that to tie in most of the building. Like we would start with the exterior as a single project, and then do another individual project for the interior. The first floor would be an individual project, the second would be an individual, and so on. And we bring that back and we just connect all of these different projects, what I mean by projects is the exterior is one project and the first floor is one project and so on. And then we would just bring it in to recap and join it all. But the Leica software is the main one that we would get our accuracies from.
Hold on, I'm going to bring up, because some folks may not fully be capturing where we're at in the industry with this. So give me 2 seconds. I need to look up Mr. PJ just to show folks what we're talking about. Is your name PJ on LinkedIn, or is it Patrick?
It's Patrick.
There we go.
Incognito.
Yes. You used to have long hair in your photo on there.
Do I have long hair there? Oh, on the LinkedIn thing?
Yeah, on the LinkedIn thing. If anyone hasn't followed PJ, please follow him on LinkedIn. He has some really good stuff on here. So I'll go through and show which one. Let's see. I like this one. As you can see, I've always watched this one. But we'll go through and click through this one. This is an example. Oh, wait. No, this isn't the one. See, I did that last time.
Oh, no, scroll up.
No, hold on. You're probably right. You're probably like, Michael, I know my own feed. No, okay, you're right, PJ. I'll go back up. Is it this one? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is an example of taking scans. This is a different.
No, that's the T-Mobile Center. So,
is it? Okay.
Yeah, what you're looking at is the Leica software, Cyclone. This is what we see in an iPad when we walk around.
And this is the point cloud. I'm going to slow it down because that goes really quick. We'll go back. So as you explained through this is all the points.
Yeah, this is
how many points?
Billions of points. This is I can't recall the amount of points, but there's quite a many points in there. You're talking millions and millions of points. But this got everything that was needed for the client. Like even you were a part of this, Michal. You did the structure on this. That was so beautiful.
I looked at it. I didn't actually model it. Our team's one of somebody on my team did that. His name's Dustin Key. But yeah, basically the amount of points, the accuracy becomes the highest point of what does the client need from the outcome, right? Could you imagine if we go back to this roof structure here? Where's the circle? If we were looking at this roof structure here, how would you even begin to measure this to understand what is actually in the structure of this roof?
Something like that. They would probably try and get previous drawings. They would work off previous drawings and just fingers crossed.
What if there isn't any?
Yeah, this is where it gets very tricky.
Like, do you even have existing conditions at that point, or do you just call it, scratch? Just start from scratch, I guess, and try to understand it. Do people actually go and measure if they're actually trying to create some type of existing conditions?
I'm sure the city would have some sort of drawing archive for buildings like this. I doubt that would have no drawings to it. They would use the current drawings that the city would have, or try and get drawings off the architect that did this.
This also allows us, from a structural world, to analyze existing conditions too. This was a TI for this center here. But again, at what point do you think in the future, a lot of, from a building design perspective, most folks may have just thought of probably not this center, but in existing conditions that they can't map out, they don't understand the structure, they don't understand the building design layout. It may be more cost effective to demo and rebuild, right?
Something this, yeah, well,
Not this massive. I'm saying in terms of like a medium size, right? But so as we walk through the center here, let's see where we're at. This is now where we're talking about the level of accuracy of the point density here. We're going to go into the modeling phase. So when he said I modeled the structure, one of my team members did model the structure from the structural team here, but it was not me. I take zero credit for this. So
It's funny because I grew up on a drawing board, and we would go out to a site and we would sketch on a notepad and then get the dimensions and then come back, and I would have butter paper, and I would transfer from my notepad to butter paper with set squares and rulers, and then I would put a sheet of vellum on top of the butter paper, and I would have my ink pens, and I would trace over what I drew on the butter paper. And this is absolutely very similar to that. When you have
Matt wants to know, is butter paper
you're-
trace paper?
Yes.
Yeah. Different terminology. We're all
it's
questioning
like
this
brown
butter paper.
We call it butter paper. Because I think they put butter in it. They wrapped butter with this paper. But it was good for you know, your HB and your 2H pencils. And scanning is exactly the same. You just bring back the scan and you're basically tracing the scan. There's no difference. The same concept. You're tracing an actual real building.
The only thing that's different is understanding. Like it takes a little bit of time for those folks that have never modeled it from a point cloud. Understanding
There
point
is a lot
density.
of learning. Yeah, there is a lot of learning curve for sure.
Yeah, I got thrown in the fire. Matt and I both did for the charity hospital, which was the million square foot hospital in New Orleans that we remodeled when I first started here, and doing stairs. All of that was a lot of fun.
That was a monster of a building.
But yeah, so basically, it's again one of those things of, could you imagine? It's not just from there's a lot of time and expense from having people go out and field measure. But I think what it really comes down to, in my opinion, is the accuracy, the understanding of what's existing, what is there, is more important, because you can only get so far with a hand laser, right?
Yeah, but like if you think about it, look at digital twin now.
Ooh, so we'll get there.
We'll get there. Be a part of it. It absolutely has to be a part of it.
Because that's something you're passionate about as well. But let's go back to photogrammetry.
Oh, I get all giddy when you talk digital twin.
We'll get back to there because that's something that's definitely on the high ticket item. But so let's talk about photogrammetry. So the difference between LiDAR and photogrammetry.
So LiDAR is billions of points that hit a surface, and those beams come back. Those beams are translated into a building. The photogrammetry, on the RTC, the photogrammetry colors that the photos that are taken color the points. So the difference with photogrammetry is one is photo, and the other is beams of light. LiDAR.
What's more accurate?
LiDAR.
Okay. So moving forward, and also when you use things like the Matterport, from what I was told, there's issues with light. Is that correct? Like time of day, reflection?
Well, it's when you're doing something like that with Matterport, it's impossible to do exterior. When I used Matterport before because Amazon wanted a Matterport. This is crazy. So, the Lord and Taylor building in New York. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lord and Taylor.
No.
So Lord and Taylor was like it was their flagship store. Amazon bought it for $1 billion. and they have no idea what they're doing with it. So they had me go in and use Matterport to scan. How many floors? I can't recall how many floors. These floors were like 60 and 70,000 square feet. And it was just when you were on a floor, you had all these columns everywhere, and you can never see the end of the building. And Matterport, you can only go a certain distance for it to start stitching the photos together. And then the more photos you take, the building starts to go off on tangents. And when you bring it back, Matterport tries to fix it. Their software tries to fix those photos and put it back together nicely. You can go into all the globes and stuff, but when you look at a plan, it's like it's an absolute mess. But yeah, I've had some experience with Matterport.
And if you were investing in either someone to go out and do it or to scan themselves, and I'm not trying to talk down on Matterport. I just want to be clear for what we do in the industry.
I wouldn't use Matterport.
Yeah, because I think it's a great solution. Like, again, if any of us are going and trying to purchase a new home or something like that, you look on Zillow, you see like a 3D rendering of it. That's typically Matterport, right?
Yeah.
And that is great. Cool visual walkthrough. It can give you somewhat great plans for a floor plan layout. But is that going to equal 1-to-1 on what we need from an accuracy level?
No.
Yeah. So I would just like to make that distinction. Okay, so someone said, yes, Doug, there is the LiDAR on the phone. It's actually pretty good. They also have it on the iPad Pro.
You know, Autodesk used to have a product called Catch 123. Do you remember that? Oh, you might remember that. They had this thing called Catch 123. So we had a project in university where we had to scan structure, and we scanned it with our phone, and we brought it in to Catch 123, and then we would bring it into Rhino.
So if anyone didn't know, PJ's a Rhino person. So if anyone has any questions on Rhino, he's the guy for it here. As we all know, we also represent Autodesk products, and it's not 1-to-1. I never learned Rhino, but you did, right, PJ? And you love it.
Oh, absolutely love it with a passion.
We'll talk about that another day. That's a comparison between...
You know what? I listened to you and Matt just before I got on here. I listened to you and Matt about where was it? It was about Rhino kids learning in school.
Yes, it was an architecture firm.
You know, that was a really good MCR you had with Matt. I listened to the whole lot. That was really good, actually. I enjoyed that one.
Well, you're going to listen back to this and enjoy this one.
No, I will not.
To it.
No, I'm not going to listen. No way.
But no, yeah, Rhino is predominantly used in the universities here in the United States. And again, it comes back to that question of, I personally think it's because it's free that no one's pushing an Autodesk product when it's free and engagement. So if no one's out there also providing a sale for it, saying, hey, this is what you should be using, versus of like, hey, here's this free solution, use it. I think there's a difference, right?
Well, if you think about it too, Rhino has no limitations. Rhino does.
For what?
Revit does.
Rhino has no limitations for what? That's a question.
So whatever comes into your mind, you control it in Rhino.
Yes, but I think Rhino
isn't anything.
But I think Rhino is not a delivery tool. It's not a CD creation tool, but it's used as that, right? And I think Rhino could be used more as a prelim SD design, right? An understanding.
Well, there's a lot of firms. Gary, they use Rhino, and Grasshopper. They actually use Creo.
Yep, I've heard of Creo. A lot of people use
Engineer.
Yeah, but Creo is more used in DoD work. or
Uh-huh.
like aerospace. I know Creo is heavily used at Raytheon. Living in
Oh yeah.
Tucson, Raytheon has one of their biggest sites out there, and that was always. I actually tried getting a job there, but our local school, community college that I went to, didn't have Creo training. And that's all they were. Like literally everywhere was like Creo, 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 not AutoCAD or anything like that, because of the security
Uh-huh.
behind it. So
Yeah, when I used it, it was Pro Engineer, and they renamed it to Creo.
yeah, it's predominantly used in like aerospace, DoD type of work. I know from out here. But
Well,
go
when I worked with Frontier Technologies, I used Pro Engineer for all our designs,
hmm,
for all the fittings. We did a curtain wall one time in Pennsylvania, and it was just all rods and clevises and specialized fittings. All of that was Pro Engineer.
really.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like a comparison to like SolidWorks or Fusion and Inventor, right?
Oh, this Creo is on a different level. It's nothing. It's on a different level.
What's it like?
It's it's scary at the beginning. It is a complex
From
software.
solutions that I know, explain it. What's it a blend between?
Well, then if that's what you're asking, correct.
That's
Fusion
what I was
and
saying. Yeah.
Inventor. Yeah, my
It's a blend.
apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're always right.
No, I'm not. I was just saying from like I always compare it to things that I know, and
Yeah.
maybe that are more familiar to us folks in the industry. Okay, so on that same note, fast forward to LiDAR, where you're at here, you got a job here on the scanning team, right?
Correct.
Yep. Which you've gone and done very large buildings, traveled a lot, scanned small to supersized, civic centers. Fast forward to you rolling back over to the architecture team where you're still facilitating some things from like scan to Revit. So we call it scan to Revit,
Yes.
folks, instead of scan to BIM because BIM is the process. So just
I
remember
remember
that.
listening to that too on Matt Miracle.
Yeah. You got to clarify because that's a big stigma in the industry. People get really worked up about it. So if you say scan to BIM, people will then come in and say, "What are you talking about?" Because BIM is a process, but it's kind of interchangeable for those folks that are in the industry. They understand that it's majority of the times Revit. But in your case, you would prefer Rhino, so it would be scan to Rhino, right? Because well, I mean, like I follow the Aussie guru out in Australia, and they primarily use Rhino, and they use Rhino more profoundly because of the open API connection is more superior through things like Grasshopper, right?
That Aussie guy is amazing.
Yeah,
He is super, super good.
yeah. Um, but yeah, going back forward to here, now you've dipped your toes into something completely different. And this is where I wanted to get to at the tail end of this MCR because it was something I truly wanted to invest time into and unfortunately wasn't able to. But your interest keeps me grounded on where things are going. But I would love to learn, this new buzzword of digital twins and what is this about and what piqued your interest. And now, as you're implementing it here at ATG, um, where we're at and where it is going in the industry.
So it's relatively new to keep updating Tandem. Tandem is a software that facilitates um, all your models. These models you can import from, locally or import from ACC directly from it. The crazy thing I like about not Tandem but Digital Twin is the fact that
Yeah, when did you first
you can
hear about it?
see.
Like, when did you
Um,
hear about digital twins?
Maybe 6, 8 months ago. with was it 6 months ago maybe? We had a meeting. It was last year. They had a meeting with Scott, and I knew a little before that, but he was excited about the idea of it, and that it's a route that he believed was going to get bigger, but with bigger companies. And then that got me really excited because I knew something about it. When I transferred from the reality capture department to the architecture department, I seen this little group called Twin Formers, and I'm like, there's something about this word that sounds digital to me. And then it was you guys, and that's when I got all, when I got giddy. Yeah, that was really the main point. Is when I got giddy, I wanted to get fully versed in it.
Yes.
I'm slowly getting fully versed in it, but it allowed you can see the building breathe is what digital you can physically see the data that building has inside of it or is emitting from it.
Yeah, I think there's a big digital twins has been around for a while, and a lot of the times it was more of a back end from a facility operation standpoint, and it was just static data, so they understood what everything was from a serial number, part, ticket creation type of scenario. It wasn't meant to breathe life into the building, I would say, where you're seeing live metric data update simultaneously. It was more, again, from the ops perspective, right? So operations of the building, ticketing system. When I went and did my Bluebeam certified instructor course back in 2019, there's a couple of folks. There's one gentleman specifically who I still follow on LinkedIn, whose company was that, right? Not his company, who he worked for. And it was operations specific. There was actually quite a few people there that were just building operations specifically, and they used Bluebeam a lot for PDFs, tying those into having that from a tracking perspective of what's constructed, what is there, to then do like ticketing systems of, hey, this, I don't know, HVAC condensers out. Which one do we need to reorder, right? Just that data of understanding what is currently there so they can have
it was just
a
like
log.
PDFs in there that were okay. So
and is meant for operations, right? Like how is this, what was in this building and what do we need to go repair, and then ticketing systems from that perspective. That's what it was. It wasn't, and a lot of it wasn't really built around Autodesk ecosystem that I learned it. Autodesk didn't really flourish in that they had something called what was it called? It was BIM 360 Ops. That's what it was called. Yeah, BIM 360 Ops was their operations tool or digital twin tool before Tandem came out. So if you look it up, BIM 360 Ops was their first tool initiation into the facility maintenance digital twin era, and it wasn't really called the digital twin. And then I think in the last year,
sounds like a very slow start.
Yeah. Well, as always,
with just having PDFs and just machine data, not actual real data, but model number, which is great, which is fine, like model number and.
But that's all these folks needed.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't looking at. So I think my opinion of digital twins initiated from the cusp of it was AI learning and a living, breathing building to understand where data is going, right? Where that building information is going, and being predictive indexing of new construction of buildings, right? That's kind of where that rush is coming from, I think. But yeah, so basically, right, we have this industry now where we're talking about different deliveries of 3D versus 2D. We talked about PDFs, right? Those types of scenarios. I think the big initiation was, what was it, a year ago? I don't think they really no, they pushed it a little bit. Yeah, I think they did in Vegas.
They pushed it in Vegas at the AU.
I think it was
recall a couple of talks regarding tandem for sure.
Yeah, and I think that was 2023, and there was talk about tandem being the solution for digital twin. Now, the industry kind of thought that as just a digital replica of existing structures, and it wasn't really looked over as a delivery to a client as well, right? It was just more of let's understand and have a digital replica of an existing building. That was my interpretation of it at the beginning, that's what it was, right? A digital twin.
But I think you're right. I think it was conceived that way, and then like everything else evolves within the blink of an eye.
Yes, especially in our industry today.
And like
with
it
technology.
changes quicker now. Everything is changing so quick.
It's rapid pace.
It's crazy pace. It's just literally a crazy pace.
And I think that's where it was, right? It was more of, and no one could understand, well, what's the benefit of me providing a digital twin, right? A replica of an existing building. What's the market value for that? We don't understand it, right? And then I think it evolved to then people understanding, well, what is the possibility to add more value to this? And I think also with the iteration of AI to understand and get predictive data from a live building to either forecast repairs or design flaws, and then create a better build environment. I mean, there's a bunch of cases. That's one of some.
That's a byproduct.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's an ROI. At the end of the day, it's return on investment on that building.
And it can be done in a couple of ways. I mean, there's a bunch of different case stories, but basically what I think happened is at some point there was a transition of just a replica to how do we understand the building as it's living and what that return is from whatever's in it. And it could be from operations. You could understand it from a zoning perspective of how much does this department bring in revenue wise. You can even go down to the philosophy of, well, how much am I putting more money into repairing this building, maintaining this building as it's existing, or even down to how is this building designed and how much am I spending from a sustainability perspective, right? There's a bunch of different case scenarios that people are now understanding.
The list is endless.
Yeah. And that didn't start until this last AU. And I think that was in the initiation of AI as well. And it's primarily, I think, because in order for these learning models to understand and interpret data, they need data, which we don't have any data of majority of existing buildings, as you're seeing from scanning. And that's where scanning is now taking a huge part in the industry and starting to flourish, because people need this data to then do predictive indexing, because they're going to start seeing, as we talked about too, digital twins will not be adopted for a residential home. As amazing as it would be to be able to have predicted index, like if I wanted to know why it costs so much to heat and cool my home in the summer, right?
Well,
I could just look at my
you have Ecobee for that, or you have Honeywell for that.
Yeah,
just a little app. You can turn it on and off. You can see all the data of your own home. Most of it's just heat loss.
Yep. So maybe I need to provide more insulation, right? But these are just things that you can start having now at your fingertips, but at a larger scale, I think is where it's going to happen first.
Yeah, Scott Landers did mention that it's not going to be a small thing. It's geared really for massive construction.
Yeah, I think at this point,
a 1,000 square foot home, you're not gonna have it. Well, eventually, I would think about it. Actually, we probably will end up every single home, every single thing that's built will be a digital twin.
I don't see why not, PJ.
Oh, it's inevitable.
Yeah,
it's inevitable. It's like flying cars.
Well, it'll be a delivery, right? So I think that the mindset will change when you start seeing, and what I'm already seeing. The thing is, I think there will be a point in time where people don't just say there's a requirement to submit a digital twin on this as a delivery to the client. And we're seeing and we're not going to name names because I know you've worked on these projects, so don't name names on these projects, but there are some big players out there that are currently now demanding, as a delivery from an owner perspective, digital twins. So once we start seeing that switch, as us being in, the great part about being on the consulting side is we don't just talk to a couple of clients here or there. In our local area, it's vast, it's wide, our net is wide, and we get a lot of interpretation and a lot of data fed to us. I think we're starting to see that turning point in any industry. If an owner, someone constructing and paying, well, not constructing, paying for the construction of the building, is requiring that, I think that's the big turning point in this industry when it's going to be adopted more heavily.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's probably easier too to actually do it as it's being built rather than do it after it's being built.
Yep.
So I think that's probably the next stage.
It's a hard thing to stomach, right? When you have a building that's already constructed. Hey, PJ, how much is it going to cost me to have you come out?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the ROI is on you scanning this yet, right?
Yeah.
To scan it and then have somebody model it. I don't know what this investment's going to get me, right?
Yeah.
But I think the big turning point now is not that, unless they're doing a huge renovation project. I think it's the delivery part now is going to be required.
I think you're right, Michal. Well, I think eventually cities will be wanting them too.
Yep. As a digital record.
Yes.
As part of the delivery.
Like it used to be 2D drawings.
It still is 2D drawings.
Yeah, I think it's going to change eventually.
I think that'll change a lot further down the road. But what I could see happen more rapidly is a delivery of a 2D set, but a requirement for a 3D delivery with it.
Yes.
Then a slow phase out of 2D to 3D, because we have no interpretation, no standardization of what needs to be delivered to a municipality from a 3D standpoint. Every firm has their own standardization and understanding of information. I truly think digital twins is going to start requiring, or not requiring, digital twins will start demanding and creating the standards we've always needed in models.
Very good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Michal.
Because you have to have parameter of data and information in order to have this digital twin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was never a thing. You could have whatever you want in your model, as long as it looks good on a 2D, 3D, I mean, a 2D PDF. No, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like in the model, because at the end of the day, the delivery for you to get construction documents is a 2D set.
Yes.
I think since there's been no requirement of validating data, this will change that, because digital twins essentially gives anybody access to understanding what that data was created as. And you're required to deliver upon it.
Well, back in the day, the Polynesians, they used to map islands that were never on with accuracy, right? And I think intuition is kind of lost in a way, because after intuition is we had information. And what I mean by information is that you would, let's say real estate, you go down to a building, you get on a bus and you go to that building and you look in a book and you look at all the listings for that day or for that week or for that month. And then you had the computers where now that information, you don't need to get on a bus and go and get that information. You got the data online. So we went from intuition to information to data. And now we're in the AI world, which has everything. Now imagine you in the middle of an ocean and you had to map yourself back. You'd never do it.
No, 100%. Google Maps.
So
that's what it's there for, PJ.
I think we're getting dumber and dumber as time goes on. Like we do have intuition where you listen, don't put your hand on a hot plate, right? But
Yep.
that's all that's left. There's no, can you go to a place and then walk back and know how to walk back?
I
If I'm
think
going off at a tangent, please tell me.
no, you're totally. I don't want to say you're wrong, but I don't want to also put off the other side where I think we're also becoming smarter too, since information's so readily available, depending on your personality and how you want to look at information.
Interesting,
right? Because I think there's a lot of folks that are now ingesting information at a quicker rate and quicker pace than what we've typically been able to have because it's at our fingertips. Now, the question would definitely be is, are you motivated to do that or not?
Yeah.
So a great example would be you knew very little about digital twins 6 months ago, but in 6 short months, right? I would say it's probably only been 3 months since you've been really heavily involved. You know about sensors. You're going to start learning about API and connections. You somehow were able to get sensor data into digital twin through a hub. So,
and here's my other take. Do you need to understand architecture then?
I don't know. Depends on what your delivery
You're
is.
only putting in sensors. You know, there's different arts that are lost as we evolve. Like the drawing board's gone, right? The A drive is gone. Do you know what an A drive was?
No idea.
It was like a floppy disk you put in and it had data in it.
Oh,
like
floppy. I know what a floppy disk is. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a square. There was bigger ones that were floppy, but then you had a smaller one. And that you just slip into your desktop.
Yes, I do remember those. So
like
I was at the peak of innovation of computers where everyone could have one at their home. We still had dial up, so yeah. Yeah, I was just confused about an A drive and a floppy disk. I know what a floppy disk is. I remember working at one of my recent companies, and they had all Autodesk products on their floppy disk still. Like if I pulled the drawer, one of the old drawers open, like it had all their past projects on the floppy disk. But yeah, good old days. Well, perfect, PJ. This was great conversation. Understanding of your capabilities, where the industry is going. I love the history from scanning data and understanding it from there. And I think that's the irony of going from a scanning team to now back to the architecture team, but still keeping that mentality of a delivery, which is a digital twin.
Yeah.
Because you were capturing live data, right, of existing conditions, which people do, by the way, in construction phase now as well, to make sure they're giving the client the correct deliverable of what was as built, meaning what is being constructed matches exactly what that model will be delivered to the client at the end of the day. So that's where the industry will go more at a rapid pace, I feel like, versus scanning existing structures and doing something with them. It's going to be at that phase of construction from the GC side, knowing they need to deliver that to a client, which we're at that time, folks, where clients are now requiring that as a deliverable. But anyways, PJ, I appreciate you for joining us today on MCR.
I appreciate you.
And everything you do here at ATG. And if anyone ever has any questions for PJ about digital twins, about scanning as we're going through and doing existing conditions, please feel free to reach out to us here at ATG. But until next time, Jason will be back. Any closing words, PJ?
Toodles.
All righty. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks a million. See you guys.
Thank you.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. and check out some of the other content on our channel.